Hello and welcome back to the Matrix Green Pill podcast. I'm your host, Hilmarie Hutchison, and today's guest is someone who's redefining what it means to lead, be that through strategy, structural innovation, and real-world acceleration. Dr. Sultan Al-Sha'ali is the Vice President of the International Accelerator for the MENA region, Deputy Chairman of Alshaali Group, and the Founding Director of the UAE Government Accelerator. He's also the creator of the Executive Accelerator, a KHDA-aligned leadership program built to help executives unlock clarity, speed, and measurable impact. Wow, incredible. His career spans the private sector, government, and family businesses, giving him a rare systems-level view on how meaningful change actually happens. Whether he's influencing national reform or helping leaders rethink their inner architecture, Dr. Sultan brings a bold, deeply human approach to modern leadership. I am so looking forward to this conversation. Sultan, welcome and thank you so much for joining me today.
Hilmarie, it's my pleasure. Thank you for this wonderful introduction. It always humbles me, but it also scares me that now I need to live to the bar that you just raised when I talk about myself or my project and my achievements.
Well, from our small chat before we started the recording, I am 100% sure you'll do a fantastic job. Let's start with your journey. Can you give our audience a small introduction about yourself and your background?
I was born in Dubai and I studied until my technical years. And then I went to study naval architecture in the United Kingdom. And then I did my master's in Liverpool and my PhD in London, both in business administration, strategic planning and development. I've worked in different industries. I usually say my career didn't start in an office. It really started the day I realized the world runs on systems more than people never question. My first job was in the boat factory. So our family is known. We're third generation fiberglass boats and yachts manufacturers. I started loving to work across different sectors. So I started learning the basic skills and working in different departments within the factory. So I learned carpentry, I learned welding, a little bit of electrical, fiberglass lamination. The boat company was part of a bigger group. I started working in different industries, glass, aluminum, manufacturing. I went into education as well. We went into hospitality. So I've worked across some very different environments: government, industry, manufacturing, education, private, public, and NGOs as well. I'm working with two NGOs, one in international level and one locally in Dubai. And each one showed me that human potential is often limited not by talent, by the design around it. For example, when I was working in the boat factory, I was observing a little bit of inefficiency where we could not innovate a little bit. We were held hostage by an outdated process of boat building. And even though the boat building process was outdated, there was a more outdated system that Henry Ford introduced in car manufacturing that I introduced into the boat building factory. So we started having production lines and we started moving the boats on certain dates. And that actually stopped delays from different departments because psychologically, subconsciously, everyone knew that if the boat reaches this level, it has to leave and has to be delivered to the customer. And there's like 4 or 5 stages before that. It helped redefine the process because now people were not hostage to their own function, but they were looking at the bigger picture around them.
That is so interesting. The business that you're in and what you do is not something that sort of kids grow up, dreaming about doing, but it sounds almost like your experience working in such a variety of different areas of your family's business, as you said, even the larger business, gave you a view of things that most people probably never see, where as you mentioned, the human potential is not limited, but the design around it is what is limiting them. So did your interest in what you studied come first, or did you have the experience first and then led you to choose what you were studying?
To be honest, it was a bit of both because when I was studying in Southampton, we had different subjects and one of them was related to manufacturing. I remember when the professor asked us to choose a topic and write about, because most of the people there were into sailing boats, I was maybe one of the few who were into motorboats. I chose to write about a specific part that's called an engine mount, which separates the engines from the boat to eliminate vibration. And as soon as I submitted that as a topic, the professor called me in and he's like, "What are you talking about?" I was like, "Engine mounts." He's like, "Yes, I know, but why? How do you know about this?" So I started explaining that I grew up in a boat factory. I remember he asked me to turn that small presentation into a lecture. And I think this was my first experience of public speaking in front of like 50 or 60 students who were my peers. But I then realized that none of them worked in a boat factory. Not one of them grew up in a boat factory. So they did not have that information. So moving forward, when I started studying business administration, strategic planning and management, it was a bit of both because I was applying it. And while I was applying it, I was looking at the theory of organizational behavior, strategic planning, development, etc. However, I was looking at the gaps between the theory and the practice because all those books that brings all this beautiful information are lovely in a classroom setting, but bring it to the real world. Not everything can be applied 100%, and you have to be agile enough to accept what you can use and develop what needs to be developed.
That's incredible. So that hands-on experience is so valuable when you go and you learn the theory. And as you say, then you can also see the gaps between the two. And I think your family giving you that hands-on experience before you did this studying, you were able to then marry the two and really get a much wider, deeper understanding of the things that you were learning. As you say, that understanding the engine mount and separating the engine to reduce the vibrations is something you would only know if you've actually done the job. You mentioned in your introduction that you notice inefficiencies in the boat factory and that oftentimes it was because of the design. Okay. So you have said that most leadership problems are also actually design problems. Can you unpack that idea for us?
If you have a system that is built purely on quality standards that everyone has to meet, you limit innovation because everyone will be focused on quality. If you could have a design just focused on speed, you don't give the room for people to grow beyond that. People behave exactly as the system is designed for them to behave. If your structure rewards safety, don't expect innovation. If everything requires approval, don't expect initiative. You know what? It's just like in the Matrix, the environment dictates the rules and people adapt to survive within those rules.
That is so interesting, and that makes absolute sense. Looking back again at the boat factory, when you realized that there was inefficiencies, you then suggested to change the system, which then made it a better process. How open was the management, how was the employees to making the changes? How open are people generally to making changes to existing systems?
You have different kind of people who think in different ways. So let me tell you a funny story. Our chief mechanical engineer, his name was Philip. His nickname in the factory was Mr. Not Possible. Whenever anyone is trying to recommend a new change in design, not possible. Mechanical performance, not possible, not possible. That frustrated me in the first few years of working. And it took me a lot of time to adapt his mentality into the team by saying, you know what? I need him now because when he says it's not possible, he's raising red flags that we need to pay attention to. This also was adapted in the government accelerators, where we started bringing opposition to the table as much as we bring allies, because we want to hear their point of view and why are they opposing this, so we can design the best solution. So it took time for people to adapt. However, it was giving them that opportunity to work with freedom. So you don't give people responsibilities without giving them equivalent level of authority to execute or even to delegate. And I think this will be the next level of innovation or even the next level of acceleration is when management starts delegating more so they can free themselves to think strategically.
So it's a top-down. Management has to make the first mind shift change.
However, because our boat factory was also built on a craftsmanship, we had to also frontline employees, the workers, the carpenters, the electricians, adapt also to a little bit of this. So we started not by telling them what to do, by asking them what do they want. And I'll give you one of the simplest requests we got from the fitters. Like, sir, can we have wireless drills and screwdrivers so we don't have to run around the boats carrying 30-meter cable around us? And if there are 6 people working, there are 6 cables tangled that needs to be untangled at the end of the day, which takes us about an hour. So a small solution came from a simple request that I don't think any of the managers ever looked at.
And imagine the safety concerns with lots of wires running around, the time it would take them to run in, plug in, change. They say it's wasting an hour untangling everything. And listening to them, the frontline workers, because they are facing the problem all the time. And what a change just that one small change would have made.
Correct.
Very interesting, fascinating. So at different levels of the organization, people needed to have the ability, as you said, to make changes, to be willing to innovate. And it comes from management at all the different levels to say, look for new ways, look for different ways and ways to do things better. Let's get back to the changes then. What led you from the private sector into public service and then into acceleration work?
Led me technically is the story I told you about the government leadership program that got me to introduce to the Prime Minister office and to the all government departments they work with. So as I said, the UAE government leadership program is a program that is designed on multiple levels, and we were at the executive level. Usually this is where undersecretaries and assistant undersecretaries will go to develop their leadership skills. However, at that stage, at that year specifically, they opened the door for self-nomination and for the private sector to apply, any individual in the private sector to apply. So I did apply, and after the series of interviews and the tests that they put us through, I was lucky to be not only the only one, but the first one from the private sector to join the leadership program. Again, I realized that whatever they were teaching us, there were a lot of amazing concepts and speakers that came in, and the trips that we did to Oxford University and met a lot of the professors and understood a lot of how things work from different perspectives. Working in the private sector taught me how organizations grow. Working in the government and through the government leadership program taught me how nations grow. But both had the same constraints. People want the bottleneck. I'm going to go back and say the system was, and it was always, as a leadership, how do you develop systems? When I contributed in the leadership program, I think just before finishing and graduating, this is where I was selected to run the Government Accelerator department. So I was the first director who not only established the department and its systems, but we also registered the intellectual property of the acceleration methodology, and we published it publicly, and it's an open source. We even created a training program, a MOOC, and a diploma to develop other individuals or organizations. And of course, to set up the department, its systems and its manuals, to have it self-sustainable. That was the interesting journey of the Government Accelerator, I think almost 4 years.
So clearly your background, your hands-on experience, your education then was so valuable when you took on this role. And as you say, you were the first one and the only one at the time. And then, as you just mentioned, you played a key role in the UAE Government Accelerators. I think you sort of touched on it. What did you learn about transformation at national scale?
To be honest, joining the Government Accelerator felt like stepping into a higher level of the simulation. I'm going to use some matrix references as well.
I love that.
A place, where you could redesign structures instead of complaining about them. And once you learn how to accelerate national outcomes, you carry that mindset everywhere. So to give you an example, one of the teams we had was working on the UAE master plan for the infrastructure. The UAE is a federation, well, it's a federal system. So we have 7 emirates, and each emirate operates individually. However, there is a supreme level, and then we have a federal government, and then we have the local governments. Ministry of Infrastructure Development had a major issue creating a master plan for roads, just to start with roads on a federal level, because every emirate had its own plans. They were stuck, I think, for almost 8 years trying to create that. However, when they came together in the accelerator, they started, instead of complaining about the other entities not doing their job or not complying or not wanting to cooperate, they started listening, because this is what we do in the accelerator. We create a team and we coach them. However, the team is frontliners, and the leadership has to they give them the buy-in and the authority. And when every team member started listening to the issues that the other team members are facing, they started becoming a bit more empathetic. They started helping rather than resisting. And within 100 days, their goal was to just create a master plan for one layer, which was the roads. In 100 days, they actually achieved 4, and they were working on the 5th layer. So they had roads, they had zones, they had power plants, power lines, and water lines. That's an achievement, as he was talking about, 8 years compressed into 100 days. And by the way, 100 days is not 100 working days. It's 100 days on the calendar. So if there's public holidays in the middle, whatever days in the middle, they are still working. And the achievements were always amazing.
I think you have touched on it, but let's just get it clear. How is acceleration work different from traditional leadership or consulting approaches?
Consulting is theoretical. You look at the situation, gather the information, analyze it, present the result, challenge assumptions, present results, and then present recommendation. This is something great that the big 5, I'm not going to name them, but everyone knows them, are famous for. They charge a lot of money to do it. However, they don't tell you how to apply those recommendations. Most of the time, the recommendations are so vague because they want to protect themselves if something goes wrong. And the entities also want to create that buffer of safety. However, in the acceleration mindset, we are not looking at the theory. We are looking at the application, the practical, tangible results that can be achieved from facing that challenge or from developing a service. One of the government services, and the UAE is famous for its government services, and they always want to provide the best government services because this actually is, I think, more related to the happiness of citizens and expats living here, or local and expats living here. So one of the examples, and this is a very interesting story as well, was the newborn government service package. In the past, in the UAE, if you have a child born, you as a father will need to submit 7 different documents to 3 different entities to get the birth certificate, to get the passport, to get the ID. It somehow, takes away the happiness of the moment. Because as a father, I think you get 1 day off and you want to spend that 1 day off with your wife and newborn in the hospital. So this is where the government services department started coming together and brought in the stakeholders. So we had the hospitals, we had the different government entities that are related to the process. And they said, okay, let's reduce the time. So instead of going to 3 different or 4 different departments and submit 7 different documents, how can we make this a seamless, happy service? Within 100 days, the service became, instead of you going to different departments and submitting your documents, a proactive service. I'm sure the term is proactive, is correct. However, basically, you will get an SMS message as soon as your child is born saying, congratulations on your newborn, click here to select the name or write in the name. You choose the name and then they say within 5 working days, the birth certificate, Emirates ID and passport will be delivered to your house.
You say the UAE is known for trying to make government services a good experience for people. And as you say, you've given us a really practical example of how that is done. Now, I don't know if this is different for Emiratis and expats. I remember when my daughter was born, also having to drive around with a little baby in the car to different places to have all the different things done. That was 17 years ago.
I know for a fact that definitely it's there for Emiratis. So one of the nice things about the government accelerators is the final stage, once the 100-day challenge is over, there is a scalability and sustainability review. So now they develop a plan. Yes, it's theoretical at that point. However, everyone will go back to their entity and continue working to ensure that this service is sustained. And scalability is where they can expand it, either to include different nationalities. The challenge there, I would say, is dealing with different embassies and consulates to get certain documents processed, because with us, everything is connected at the back end. It's not as easy to connect with other government entities or embassies. However, I know now with the technologies, with the blockchain and with the AI, I think a lot of this is going to change. And again, I'm going to say, change the design, the behavior changes automatically. This is why the Government Accelerator delivers results so quickly. And this is actually why the Executive Accelerator redesigns the leader's operating system instead of drowning them in theory.
Yes, I love that. Let's talk about that. What inspired you to create the Executive Accelerator and why now?
So like I said, one of my favorite moments was during the National Challenge in the Government Accelerator, where everyone believed the goal would take years until we redesigned the structure. We brought all the players together, removed bottlenecks, and reshaped accountability. What seemed impossible became achievable within weeks. What inspired me to create the Executive Accelerator and why now is basically the world upgraded its hardware. Let's say the matrix is evolving. We have AI, we have hybrid work, we have data, we have blockchain. Most leaders are still running on outdated softwares, and the gap needed a new solution. So the Executive Accelerator was built to give leaders a structure, 100-hour upgrade, a future-ready operating system of clarity, decision-making, innovation. As I said, because the world is accelerating, whether leaders are ready or not. And the UAE has proven that acceleration, when designed well, produces exponential results. So this program brings the same DNA directly into organizations and individuals. One of the cases that I actually use in the Executive Accelerator, 100-hour challenge, and this is 100 working hours because no one can work 100 hours continuously without rest. The program itself, the Executive Accelerator program, was conceived, designed from theory to materials, to getting the approvals from the KHDA, to launching it, to register the first participant in 83 hours. So we had an extra 17 hours to perfect it, to work on something else. And this gets to show you that, yes, if you put your mind to something, you can really compress years of growth into 100 hours. In 100 hours, you can learn a language. In 100 hours, you can learn a musical instrument. So we flipped the traditional model. Instead of teaching theory, hoping behavior will follow, we redesigned the leader first. We redesigned their mental models, their decision structures, their system of awareness, removing this fog that they think is stopping them. So the 100 hours include real-world acceleration tools from national projects, for example, structure redesign sessions from innovation labs, decision-making rewiring from different famous methodologies, innovation labs and architecture, as I said, and practical missions that breaks old patterns. It's like teaching leaders to see the code of their own matrix. Once they see that, they can rewrite it.
And like you said, once you see something you didn't even know, that's saying about you don't know what you don't know. And once you know, you can't unsee it. As you say, the world is evolving, there's new technologies, and oftentimes it's the young that adopt changes quicker, but it's really the executive still running on legacy systems, not seeing the possibilities. And I love how you said you have to redesign the leader. You often speak about upgrading the architecture of how leaders think. What does that actually look like?
So I'm going to go back and say acceleration is not speed. And we use a lot of books that's, I would say, elective readings. Acceleration, it's more about clarity plus design. So if you have that clarity of your own possibilities, of your own strengths, and this is actually one of the things that we combined different best practices and created a good mix and brought very nice examples of, instead of working on your weaknesses as an individual, why not focus on your strengths and use them as an advantage in your life? So if you are good in design, if you're good in public speaking, do not waste your time on the weaknesses, because you can delegate that to someone else and spend more time using your strengths to achieve results. And I'm going to go again and focus on tangible results. The 100 hours challenge starts with a 16 hours immersive program. All the participants that joined us in the first two cohorts came out with a completely different mindset about something that they thought would take them years to achieve, and they're now achieving it. I mean, if you're talking 100 hours, some are reaching their goals within 2 weeks, some are reaching their goals within 3 weeks, depending on how much time they have. So it's the code that you're changing, the code of leadership, the code of self-confidence within the individual and their capabilities. So once they believe in themselves, they can start running, they can start flying, they can start drawing, they can start doing what they want to do. And for some reason, because of the fog that surrounded them and they did not have the direction, or they did not know in which direction they should move, it became much more clear that let's break it down into small pieces and let's focus on what can be achieved. And one step at a time, like they say, improve yourself 1% every day. Within 100 days, you've improved yourself 100%.
I also like how you said acceleration is not speed, it's about clarity plus design. And it is incredible to think that in 16 hours, someone can completely change their mindset or shift their mindset. It's absolutely incredible. How do you help leaders bridge the gap between vision and execution, especially in fast-moving environments?
So we created a new hybrid program, which is not, as I said, it's not 100% theoretical and it's not 100% practical. It's a bit of both. What we do after the 16 hours is we actually provide them with around 4 coaching sessions where they come back virtually as a team. Once they've done like a 25%, once they've completed 25 hours, and okay, what have you done in 25 hours? And then 50 hours and then 75 hours. And most of them before 75 hours, they are surprised that they are much closer than they thought to achieving their goals. I would say combining the coaching process with the immersive experience helps the individuals realize more and more how strong they are and how they were stuck in the system, how they can actually break out of the matrix.
You've worked across government, private enterprise, and family business. What's one universal challenge you see among all leaders?
I would say the self-confidence.
Very interesting.
It varies from individual to individual. And you can see, for example, the self-confidence of someone in the design department who knows how to use the design software, and watch them how confident they are when they are drawing, when they're designing a boat, when they're designing a building, when they're designing whatever. And you see their confidence while they're dealing with the keyboard and the mouse. It's like subconscious to them. They don't even need to look at what they're typing. They're just focusing on the screen. And you see their confidence there. However, they're not confident, for example, in public speaking. So you ask that same person to give a presentation of the design that he just designed, which is a beautiful design, by the way, and they fail because their confidence is stuck in the skill that they have and they cannot convey it to somewhere else. And that's where I say, okay, this is where teams or individuals, first individuals knowing their own strengths helps them. But then if they want to help the organization, this is where we start doing a team strengths exercise. And we've done this through also Gallup Strength Finder and Gallup Strength Team Coaching. So as I said, we've used different methodologies to bring them together. It's that confidence, not only in themselves, but also in the surrounding environment. So when we did this with a couple of government entities, everyone at the beginning was a bit confused. It's like, is this going to affect our promotion? Is this going to affect our evaluation at the end of the year? We're like, no, just wait until everyone's top 5 strengths was written in their email signature. So when they communicate with each other, they start knowing not only their strengths, but their teammates' strengths. So if someone is better in public speaking than me, but I'm better in design, I'll finish the design and then I'll ask that person to present it on my behalf. But I will be there as a backup support for the technical part. And then they get a win because the design gets approved, even if the design was amazing and the designer was the one presenting. But because he doesn't have presentation skills, the project fails. It's sad to see something like that happening. But now that we know where the error is and how to fix it, there is no reason for not attacking it immediately. And that's why we're called accelerators. And it's funny because I always say we need to slow down before we speed up. And we use a lot of Formula One metaphors. Like you cannot take a sharp corner without hitting the brakes first. Hit the brakes. And this is also embedded in the 16 hours structure. Hit the brakes. Look at the environment, look at the surrounding, understand your strengths, understand your weaknesses, look at other people's strengths, see how you can leverage things that you never thought. Do a stakeholder mapping and consider all stakeholders. And you'll be surprised of how many people you can actually contact to help you achieve your goal faster. I'm going to share some of the stories once the cohorts have completed like their challenges. I want them to speak. I want them to tell their stories. Because all what we did is just help them find the way. But we did not tell them where the way is. We did not tell them how to do it. They knew exactly what to do, how to do it. They were just stuck in a system that did not allow them to accelerate.
Wow, that's absolutely brilliant. So many gems in what you've just said. I love how you say that in some areas, one person can be so confident and take them out of that comfort zone, put them in something else, the confidence just disappears. So rather than focusing on dealing with the things we are not good at, focus on what you're good at and then delegate your weaknesses to someone else and then maybe make a collaboration. So it's not taking away from someone because you can't maybe do public speaking. In fact, I saw this in practice as I was in a meeting with some venture capitalists, like a Shark Tank experience, where founders of ideas, they were presenting their ideas, looking for investors. But some of them had brilliant ideas, but it was presented so badly that you felt like if they had someone else presenting the idea, it could have maybe got the idea across a lot clearer with a lot more confidence.
I'll give you a known example from real life. The best salesmen are always working for the companies with the best marketing departments. Because salesmen, they love to sell, but give them the leads, generate them the leads. And companies who have good, amazing marketing departments who are generating serious leads, valuable leads, the good salesman would love to work for those companies. But if a company does not have a good sales marketing department, they will never be able to hire a professional salesman because the salesman will just say, okay, what do you want me to do? How many phone calls am I going to get? How many leads am I going to get? Give me the leads, I'll convert them.
So they don't want to go and find the leads. They don't want to create the marketing. But once you give them those leads, they're going to run with it. That's very, very interesting.
Because it's not their job. Their job is sales. There's people who are good at marketing, but very bad at sales. And then there have people who are good at sales, but very bad at marketing. And it's very hard to find someone who's good at both.
Yes. So then rather find two different people, each with their own strengths, put them together, and then the synergy will give you something much bigger than trying to force people into roles that they don't love to do.
You're doing the interview, someone else is doing the sound recording and editing, right?
Absolutely.
I mean, unless you're really also multi-skilled and multitasking, you might be able to. Like, I know how to edit videos. It was one of my hobbies as a teenager. And I worked on a few short movies with some friends. Now, if you ask me to create a video, I would say I'd rather hire someone professional, just like you're having someone professional do the sound for this interview, because I want to focus on what I'm good at, which is maybe writing the script of the video or getting the talent to do the video or getting the concept of the video as an idea out, but not the other technical part, which, yes, I know, but someone definitely have better skills than me and can end up producing better results.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree with you more. I always say there's nothing I can't do. 100%, if I put my mind to it, I can do it. But it's going to take me a big learning curve and a lot of time investment where I'm not the expert. So rather get someone else to do what they're good at and I focus on what I'm good at. So that absolutely resonates with me. So what's next for you and the Executive Accelerator? Are there any new cohorts, partnerships, or global ambitions in the works?
The Executive Accelerators is going to develop, of course, to become on an international level eventually. However, we're now focusing on the UAE and the GCC. The Executive Accelerator cohorts, I think we're looking at around 10 cohorts per year. Every cohort is between 8 and 12 people. That will lead to the establishment of the Accelerator Club, which will be a club for those executives who are coming from different industries. Because this is another thing that we also saw in the Government Accelerator and we saw in the two cohorts of the Executive Accelerator is what we call cross-pollination of ideas. We have someone for example, we had someone from diplomacy and we had someone from real estate and we had someone from education and we had someone from investment banking. And they were all on the same table discussing the same topics that we are talking about in acceleration. When they come to talk about their issues, before we do the ideation, one of the processes that we follow is focus first at the problem or the challenge without thinking about solutions. Let's dive deeper and deeper and create that iceberg structure to know, okay, what's visible and what's not visible. And then we start talking about solutions. Ideas are flying around the room. from different backgrounds, because when you are stuck in an industry or stuck in a career or in a profession, you start thinking. Like if you're a doctor, you always think like a doctor. If you're an architect, you always think like an architect. You'd rarely go out of your boundaries. However, someone can give you an innovative solution or an innovative idea that will reduce your effort and time by 50%, 75%. That will lead next year to the creation of the Accelerator Executive Club. The other one is also to reach out more people who cannot join, because we want to also attract the GCC. And I think I told you this before we started the interview, that we are the first bilingual program. So we deliver instantly in Arabic and English. With technologies today, you have AI and you have your mobile phones with you. It's so easy to communicate, like no matter how different your language levels are. So we're creating an online program as well. That's going to be a 100-minute challenge. So we have the 100-hour challenge, and then we have the 100 minutes challenge. And this is a little bit, I would say, it's not a teaser of the Executive Accelerator, but it's also learning the fundamentals and maybe choosing a much smaller challenge to work on. And then we have the 100-day challenge, which is what was applied in the Government Accelerator. And this will be more towards entities, government entities, private sector companies who have a bottleneck of a project or who have a service that needs immediate improvement. And instead of just, again, going like a consultant and just reflecting on the reality of things and submitting a report, we are there with them for 100 days with coaches to make sure that they overcome the challenge that they are facing. So these are the things running in parallel.
Wow, some exciting work on the horizon. And I love that you are expanding first, as you mentioned, into the GCC and then also expanding internationally. I like that you're going to create this 100-minute online challenge that will be able to help people on a smaller scale experience what it is like to accelerate. Now we've come to the segment of our show where I will ask you some rapid-fire questions, our version of a game show. Are you ready?
Of course.
One leadership book that you think is underrated?
48 Laws of Power.
Oh, I love that. Yes. What's your go-to method to reset when under pressure?
Cooking.
A quote or mantra you return to often?
Do what you can with what you have.
One word that describes your approach to transformation?
Relax.
What does acceleration mean to you?
Slow down, clarity, and design.
Perfect. And my last question, what is one thing you do every day, no matter how busy you get?
I check on my kids.
Check on your kids. Lovely. Now I would like to ask you our signature green pill question. What was your green pill moment, the action or event that was the turning point for you or your career?
I think my green pill moment was the day I realized that waiting for a system to improve is another kind of illusion. Its comfort zone becomes like a soft prison. The moment I questioned the structure instead of the people, the entire reality changed. It felt like waking up from a version of life I didn't know I was trapped in. It felt like someone took me out of the matrix.
I love that. Beautifully said. I've so enjoyed this conversation. So much I've learned. I think our audience is absolutely going to love it. So many good nuggets that you've shared with us. Thank you so much for being here today. Your insights into leadership, systems design, and acceleration are a powerful reminder that acceleration is not about speed, it's about clarity plus design, if I got that right.
Correct.
Before we wrap up, where can our listeners learn more about the Executive Accelerator or connect with you directly?
So right now it's on my personal website, sultanalsha'ali.com, while we are developing the platform that will be the internationalaccelerators.com. A lot of people ask me the most obvious question. Why did you move from private sector to public, where usually people do the other thing? They spend the entire life in the public sector, then they move to the private sector. So to answer that question, I've written my first book in public service, which is available on Amazon. And as the UAE also developed and started developing their government services and eliminating bureaucracy, this is where I wrote my second book. It's called Bureaucracy, The Art of Doing Nothing. I think they're both an enjoyable read that you can find on Amazon. And I would love to also hear some reviews from anyone who actually acquires them.
Excellent. Thank you very much. And to our listeners, thank you for tuning in to the Matrix Green Pill podcast. If today's episode gave you something to think about, as it has me, please subscribe, leave us a 5-star review, and share it with someone leading through complexity. Until next time, remember, acceleration is not about speed, it's about clarity plus design.
If you enjoy our conversations, please like and subscribe. See you next Wednesday.